having a discussion about the Fong uh, purchase that some of you ordered, the Ed Fong antennas, and we are working on that. Hey, good evening. Nice turnout. Everybody's interested in Ben's presentation about mesh networks. Thank you for being here. All right, I'm James Goldstene, your president. Again, looking forward to 2027 when somebody else steps in. I did 25 though. I know, but you got to think ahead. You know, I'm thinking ahead. All right. Great to see everybody. We're going to go over the usual club business pretty quickly. Gert is handing out the giveaway tickets and a sign-up sheet circulating. And some of you saw in the newsletter that Ken sent out that we're going to be setting up what we call tzedakah in Hebrew, a donation box. The kids are making a donation box. So when we have events here, whether it's a Get on the Air or a kit build or these meetings, if you feel like putting a little bit into that box to help, that the temple would appreciate that. They're getting a new roof, a new kitchen. They were thinking of selling this building. They've decided to stay, and now they're gonna, yeah. Absolutely no pressure. For those of you who might have brought food donations, the food donation basket, which is usually in the hallway, is where those, just inside that door, the glass door there. So it's, oh, okay, well, we'll move it over. They moved the food basket because tomorrow morning they're opening this room, which is why we have these nice, beautiful tablecloths and the coffee pot set up for homeless respite. In the morning, they'll be hosting, I don't know how many people. So that's why it's set up this way. Okay, so why don't we quickly get to club business and then we'll get to Ben's presentation. Let's just skip introductions and get to club business, because we all know who each other are, I think. And if we have time, we'll come back to introduction. And we'll get people on Zoom too. So it's nice. It's good to see everybody. Do you want to start or do you want Sylvia to start? Okay.
Okay, this is I'm Carol, KP4MD. I'm the vice president of this club and also the webmaster, as well as ARL Pacific Division vice director for you. And this is a report on River City Arcs web resources as well as upcoming events. Get the right controls here. Okay. We'd like to go a little bit about history, February in radio history. Heinrich Hertz was born in Hamburg, Germany on February 22nd, 1857. He was the first to conclusively prove the existence of Maxwell's theorized electromagnetic waves by engineering instruments to transmit and receive radio pulses. And the unit of frequency was named Hertz in his honor. And that's a picture of his experimental device that proved the existence of radio waves. On the right side there, you see a little spark generator. And to the left, there's a little wire loop that showed a spark jumping across the gap there when he activated the spark generator. And he proved it was absolutely electromagnetic waves because he was able to prove that they followed polarization and all kinds of things, the typical characteristics of electromagnetic waves. And here's a famous saying of his. He believed that the discovery of electromagnetic waves had no practical applications. When he was asked about its purpose, he famously stated it's of no use whatsoever, nothing, I guess. So he viewed his work strictly as a verification of James Maxwell's theory. So that shows you. February QST, for those of you who are ARL members, you're going to have this in your digital version, or unless you've also requested the printed copies. And there's some really good articles in this month's QST. And just to show you what you're missing if you're not an ARL member. And I know most of our club members are members of the ARRL, and we strongly recommend that you please continue your membership. We appreciate those of you who are members, and if you are not, please seriously consider joining, because we need the services of the ARRL to advocate for amateur radio continuing servicing, providing services to the community and to our clubs. Again, the America 250 Worked All States Award is being held this year in celebration of the semi-quincentennial 250-year celebration of the United States. And ARL affiliated club stations can be an endorsement, so maybe we should activate N6NA sometime to be able to participate in that and help people get the affiliated club station endorsement on this award. For February contest, this is a typical type of award that you get for winning a contest or placing in your section. And a lot of people like to collect these things, and I have about a half a dozen of these from different contests as well. For February, we have February 7th and 8th. This is coming weekend. We have British Columbia, Minnesota, and Vermont QSO parties. The 1010 net has a single sideband contest, and technicians can participate in that, of course, on 10 meters. That's a great contest, and we've had some really good propagation on 10 meters recently. February 9th to 13th is the ARL School Club Roundup. February 13th to 14th is the YLRL YLOM contest. This is a very unique contest where YLs get to contact OMs and vice versa. So, and they always hold that right around Valentine's Day. So that's super. February 14 and 15 is the CQ Worldwide Radio Teletype WPX contest. February 21 to 22 is the ARL International DX contest for Morse code CW. And then February 28th to March 1st, we have the CQ 160 meter contest, single sideband, and the North Carolina and South Carolina QSO parties. And if you want more information about all of the contests that happen throughout the year, you can go to that website, contestcalendar.com, and they have all kinds of information about that there. Okay. There, okay. Yeah, I just want to mention Parks on the Air. We do have some of our members here that regularly activate Parks on the Air. They go to local parks, and they love that people come around and visit and maybe participate and help them out. I know Alan is one, K6AGW, Kishore, KR6RAO, Walter, K6HTD, and there's some of us, some others. If you're interested in participating with them, then give them a shout and go out and visit some of our parks and operate from the field. It's really a lot of fun. Just a reminder, our n6na.org is our website, and we try to keep it up to date with all kinds of information about events. Of course, we have our club breakfasts, the third and fourth Saturdays of every month at Brookfields. The third Saturday is at Brookfields at Madison Avenue, and the fourth Saturday is Brookfields at Folsom Boulevard. And we're now doing this jointly with the North Hills Radio Club. They're going to be joining us for those breakfasts. The more the merrier. We're going to have a lot of fun. It's a very laid-back type of social breakfast time together, so very informal. And
and they have pancakes.
Yeah, our next meeting is supposed to be March 3rd, and I'm not sure if this is absolutely confirmed, but we were thinking maybe having a talk on the national traffic system.
I haven't confirmed that yet, so we're working on that. And if we don't have that, we're always looking for other ideas. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. We do have very active nets. We have a total of 241 check-ins on all of our nets for the month of January. We have our Wednesday nets on 2 meters at 8 p.m., 10 meters at 8:30. Our slow scan television net is 9 p.m. And then on Saturday afternoons, of course, we have a 40-meter net, the round table net, that's at 3 p.m. And
Oh, and this week we had a special 10-meter net. Do you want to talk about that?
uh,
Last Saturday.
yeah, did you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, Wilson really should.
Oh, yeah.
Good evening, everybody. I wasn't prepared to say much about it, but it's Wilson in 6EMF, and we had Glenn K06 GLP, I think. I'm sorry if I can remember the call sign correctly, but Glenn reached out for some elmering, and he got himself a new radio station set up at his QTH. And since he's a technician class operator, he wanted to get on HF, and I knew that about all I could do to work with him is to try to get him set up on 10 meters at 28.420 where we meet on Wednesday nights. So anyway, we set up a QS afternoon, and we went after it for about 3 hours. We went over everything from, you know, what an automatic tuner can do and setting power levels and stuff like that. And we weren't able to make contact. But I got this idea that we could get some folks together on Saturday afternoon the next day prior to the roundtable net on 40 meters. And so we scurried together a plan to try to round up some people who were interested in testing on 10 meters, and we did just that. We were able to set up a net, kind of impromptu experimental net, just a way to get people together. And my original idea was to try to support Glenn, but I thought this would be a wonderful opportunity really to just engage the club and get everybody to turn on 10 meters and see if they could get something. And anyway, he still wasn't able to make contact because the band conditions weren't good, and 10 meters is kind of difficult. Line of sight is required, line of sight to make that work. But he's encouraged to continue on with his general license exam study, and he's planning on taking that in a week or two. But the last thing I'll say is that we still had a lot of fun. There was about 13 check-ins. And so thanks to everybody who supported that on a short notice. And we'll try it again one day. That's all I got. N6EMF, back to the
Yeah.
lead. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, thank you so much for organizing that, Wilson. And yeah, he's over in the, Glenn is over in the Natomas area. And if there were any stations closer to him, they may have been able to hear him, but he'd say he heard me. I was running 500 watts, and from Citrus Heights, he was able to hear me, but I could not make him out at all. Yes.
I could only hear. I tried and I could only hear you, but he was in Thomas. I'm right here in Antelope, and I should be line of sight with him. So
Okay.
maybe if he needs some assistance being in Thomas, I can help
Yeah.
Wilson.
Yeah, antenna placement is very critical on 10 meters when you're doing local contacts.
He also has a very long run over 100 feet into a CHA 250 vertical. So it's a pretty inefficient setup. So we should work with him.
Okay, thank you. Just a reminder, we have on our 2-meter nets, the third Wednesday, we always use our backup repeater, which is the same frequency pair, 145.25 output and the input 144.65. The difference is the PL tone, which is 123 on the backup repeater. And we do that every third Wednesday to make sure that the backup repeater is there. It's the only repeater we have with emergency backup power if the power grid goes down. And we will turn that on if the main repeater goes off because we lose power. Website activity for the month of January, we had a total of 940 page views and a total of 69 page views on January 7th, which was the most active day. The most visited pages were our homepage with 325 views, the repeater page 64 views, the nets page with 56 views. And again, most of the hits we had were directed by search engines like Bing and Google, 51%, and 41% were direct hits to our n6na.org URL. And most of our views, of course, were from the United States, 850. We had 41 from China, 5 from Turkey. and social media. Otherwise, the YouTube channel has now 653 subscribers, which is an increase of 7 since last month. We had 950 views of all of our videos, so it's an increase of 98 since last month. And again, the main video that's being viewed is that introduction to QMX, which was from our January meeting of last year. That's talking about the QRP-Labs QMX Plus transceiver, which is a really hot item that's getting a lot of attraction. So let's see next. On the Facebook page, we have 1,163 followers. We have a discussion group there. Everybody's welcome to join, 123 members. We have a Twitter page followed by 163 followers, and we have a Discord chat, which everybody's welcome to join. It's kind of like a little intercom system for short messages among us. We have 51 members on there. And that's it. If anybody has any questions for the leadership of the club, you can just go ahead and send an email to contact@n6na.org, and we will direct it to you and get it back to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carol. It's good to see everybody online, and it's a great turnout today. I appreciate that. The next thing we'll do is we'll have Sylvia give the treasurer's report, and then we'll ask Ben to make his presentation on mesh networks, something I know nothing about. I'm looking forward to it.
Hello. We have, as of today, we have, well, today at noonish, we have 103 active members, which is 20 more than we had at the beginning of the month. And we have 45 that are expiring soon. There's still a few people on that expiring soon list that I think will be joining. So I'll probably contact some of those folks. We have one new member, Alex, KI6BEH. He lives up in Grass Valley. So, and repeater fund donations are Lawrence Upjohn and David Minke. We thank them very, very much for the repeater fund donations. Income received, so we had $440 in membership dues, $48.68 in repeater donations, and we had $35 for the door prize tickets from the last meeting. Our PayPal charges for last month were $23.30. Miscellaneous was the door prizes from the Christmas party and the engraving for the Frank Memorial Award. Normally we have a Google charge for online services, but it fell outside of the repeating period. We didn't get a charge in that time slot. So it'll, there we go. It might show up twice next month. So we have a total of $11,000 in our credit union fund, and then we have one outstanding check, Carol, for $43. So if that could get, it may have already been deposited and just not shown up yet. And our repeater fund is, so our general fund is just under $7,000, and our repeater fund is just under $4,000. So we have an upcoming payment for the meeting space of $700. So James, are we writing that check and getting it signed and giving it to you tonight? The congregation Beth Shalom. Okay, so let's make sure we do that before we all go home. All right, let me see if I can get this to show up. we're still working on the repeater costs. And then, can I get rid of this puppy? No. No, I can't. There we go. So, and then here's the transactions from the bank, and then all the PayPal transactions. So I'm still fighting with the aggregate spreadsheet, but so I just summarized them up on this report. I think it should have been really, really simple, and it wasn't. So it's always difficult dealing with a spreadsheet that you have not done the programming for. So I may jump into that and look at that before I totally chuck it and just keep running totals. So I think, oh yeah, there was another thing. So Art, I see you. And then Craig Ruth and Rick Schneider. I don't know if you folks know that you paid twice. So you are all paid up, the three of you, until the end of 2027. If that was a mistake, let me know, and I think I can refund your money. If you just want to let it ride, that's fine too. I just wanted to make sure you knew that. So does anybody have any questions?
Thank you, Sylvia. For those of you who ordered an Ed Fong antenna, we get a discount if we order one big order as a club. You probably saw the notices on that. Sylvia has the list and has been collecting the money. If you want to add to that list, see her at the break for that. Okay, well, let's have Ben, our guest speaker, come and speak. Ben, thank you so much for coming over and speaking to us. I think you're also speaking to Sierra Foothills this week, is it? That's Jeff. Oh, okay. All right. I can't keep track. All right. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Cool. I hear all these mesh nodes buzzing in the audience.
Ben, I don't know if this is built into your presentation, but if you don't mind starting a little bit of your background, how you got into amateur radio, that
Yep.
would be great. Then how you got to this.
Okay, I can do that. I'm just joining the Zoom meeting so that I can control it from my computer. But it did not do that. Yeah, I got the link from Bill. It's not opening the app. But I have it on a thumb drive. Do you just want me to, is it easier for me to join? Yeah. I gave you the link in Discord. Just to your Discord profile.
All
Stand
right.
by. Technical difficulties.
I'm sure that mesh networking is much easier than what's happening right here. Oh, and it's definitely easier than working with Windows.
Yeah.
Bob N6PGQ does not like Windows.
Bob, are you a Linux man or a Mac OS man? Mac OS. There you go. Yeah. A brick.
A brick. Yeah.
All right. I got it, Carol. I'm joining. Yep. Okay. We'll have you as backup. screen. And I will go to slideshow. Hey, all right. I'm Ben Parrish. I'm shouting at myself. K6GEO. And thanks for having me, everybody. I've been a club member, I think, for a few years now. And I'll go through that in a moment. But I named my talk Meshing Around, an introduction to Meshtastic and MeshCore. So here's a general outline of the meeting or the presentation tonight. I'll give an introduction about myself, kind of where I came from, how I got into this. I'll talk a little bit about these different mesh networks or protocols. I'll talk a little bit about the technical stuff. I won't get too far into the weeds because there's some, tall grass to get into on that and lots of better resources than me to learn about that. I'll talk about the Sacramento and Bay Area networks and kind of the current status of those networks. And then some future plans and a little bit of bonus content about the Carmichael Elks Lodge, because I have an update about that. And I saw, as far as people on Zoom, Jeff N5JEF, and it's good to see him because a lot of my information comes from Jeff, and we've been talking a lot about trying to get MeshCore off the ground in the area, and he's a good resource. He's going to be giving a similar talk to the Sierra Foothills Club coming up soon. So an introduction about me. Like I said, I'm Ben Parrish, K6GEO. The GEO is because I'm a geologist by day. I like rocks. If you have questions about rocks, see me after or send me an email. Other than that, in my off time, I'm a nerdy dad. I like being outdoors. I'm an Eagle Scout. I'm like all things sort of tech related. I do a lot of D&D and RPG games. I became a ham in 2021, I think, is when I took my exam. And I'd been sort of thinking about it for years before that. I got interested in radio originally because my grandpa was a radio instructor in World War II. And it was just something he talked about. He was never an amateur radio operator, but it kind of stuck with me. And during the pandemic, sort of decided I had no more excuses, right? And some time on my hand. So I studied and took the exam, joined River City ARC. And I've been around a little bit. I've been pretty busy with young kids lately, coaching soccer, being a den leader for my son's Cub Scout group. So that's why I haven't seen me around much. But, with the help of people, I've been able to get an antenna on the roof. And I've kind of dove into Meshtastic a lot over the last year or two because I was able to do it at home. It's low power. It's kind of interesting and has some unique complications and challenges, and just something I can do when I have spare time, which is not a lot of spare time these days. So on top of all that, recently I became sort of the sole contact for the Carmichael Elks Amateur Radio Club here at the Carmichael Elks Lodge. The club used to be 60 or 70 members back in its heyday, and now there's 2 of us, and really it's just me because the other person can't really get down to the lodge all that often. As far as capabilities, there's a 220 repeater there at the lodge. It currently needs a new antenna and some new coax run. There's an HF-based station. I've got some pictures at the very end of this. It's an old Drake TR7 solid state radio. And so I have some plans to upgrade things there, install a GMRS repeater and some MeshCore nodes on the tower. I'm also a radio merit badge instructor recently, and I taught that merit badge for the first time 2 months ago. So trying to get more involved. But on to what we are here to talk about, which is mesh. So what is mesh and why is it cool? Some of these slides come from a presentation from the Puget Sound radio group. There's a repeater group up there. They had a really good Meshtastic or MeshCore presentation. And then a lot of other information comes from Jeff in the audience. So thank you, Jeff. But the things that stand out to me for Mesh are it's community driven. It's a really community heavy project, so it's community developed and community maintained as well. Importantly, it's decentralized, it's resilient, it's focuses on off-grid LoRa infrastructure, and we'll talk about LoRa here in a minute. But it also supports bi-directional peer-to-peer or group messaging. If you think of pagers, it's similar to that sort of interface. Like these are some of the nodes, and we can pass some of these around, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. There's a strong privacy component and encryption protocols as well for the unlicensed mode on these mesh networks. And just like our Mac OS, it just works. But like I said, there's some interesting technical challenges using low power and long range communications in the ISM bands. A couple different applications for these mesh networks. Kind of early on, it was something called LoRaWAN. LoRaWAN in 2015. Then Meshtastic comes around in 2020. And then last year, MeshCore was a fork from the Meshtastic project. Some other applications are MeshCore SAR, ATAC, Reticulum, and then LoRa APRS. Some use cases for mesh are just experiment and development, social networking fun, just talking to your friends, talking to other operators. It can serve as a radio hobbyist gateway. It's pretty low dollar investment to get started with mesh. And it scratches that itch as far as radio goes, without spending hundreds or thousands of dollars. You can certainly go that route, but you can also buy a $20 board and get started immediately. There's also a personal preparedness or emergency preparedness component that a lot of people like. There's quick response shelter management, ICP command post, and search and rescue, and on and on. There's many different use cases for this. When we're talking about these different protocols, they're typically on the 33 centimeter band, so around 915 megahertz, that sort of spectrum we're talking about. And this language is from Jeff, so thank you, Jeff, for this. But as far as wavelength and propagation go, the 33 centimeter band could be quite a bit moody. Further propagation at night, lower noise and less inversion layers. You can also get tropoducting, just like on 13 centimeter and 70 centimeter, but it can be pretty finicky. It's not a true non-line of sight band. It can bend a little bit over hills and bounce off of buildings. It can penetrate concrete and foliage pretty well. And then there's sufficient bandwidth for frequency hopping spread spectrum. In the US at least, it's tiered usage. So the primary user is the federal government for radio location or high power radar and defense uses. Some other uses can be LMS, location and monitoring service, which is commercial vehicle and asset tracking. ISM uses as well, microwave ovens, things like that. And then secondary users are Part 97 amateur radio service. And then there's the unlicensed portion, which is mainly what we're talking about, is these Part 15 devices. Which I don't have it in my talk, but the main difference there is unlicensed users in this band are limited to 1 watt. And most of these devices are 1/10 of a watt. They're pretty low power. They're 22 dB. So somewhere around there. So speaking of LoRa, it's a radio modulation and encoding protocol. It's closed source chips by Semtech is the main manufacturer. The primary use was that LoRaWAN, so Internet of Things and kind of low power, long range communications. And it's also, LoRa is also the physical layer that these different mesh projects use. But again, 915 megahertz, 104 frequency slots, and the band range is 902 to 928 megahertz with a max power of that 30 dBm. And then I have this chart, and these are just the presets for Meshtastic, so you get an idea of the data rates and the bandwidth and the link budget for their various different options. So we're talking fairly slow speeds. It's all text-based. It's not, there's no pictures, there's no real data-heavy things. It's just text messaging over radio, essentially. A little bit of technical things. So the modulation, this is just a recap of different modulations, AM, ASK, and what those waves sort of look like, and FM, FSK. And then we get to LoRa, or Meshtastic's modulation, which they call chirp spread spectrum, or FSCM, frequency shift chirp modulation. It's a little more resilient to noise, even at very low power, and LoRa can work often below the noise floor, and that's sort of what that wave looks like compared to the others. And here's a chart of link budget versus data rate with those different presets, and you have dB on the left, or the vertical, and kilobits per second on the bottom. So this is just an idealized schematic view of how the mesh system works. This is specifically for Meshtastic. And someone asked me this question before. And so Meshtastic and MeshCore are off-grid. They're not using cellular networks. They're not using the internet to send messages. Typically, you will have a cell phone or a tablet or even a computer paired via Bluetooth to your device. And that's mostly so you have a keyboard. But like in this example, I have a node that has a keyboard. And so that's how you send your message from the device to the LoRa device or the mesh node, and then it broadcasts and it sends the message via, for Meshtastic, it's a managed flood routing, and it floods the mesh and finds a path and sends it out. And then it connects to other nodes and then makes its way over your connection back to your, so you can read your message from your friends. That's just the general gist. The hardware, there's all kinds of different things. These are some pictures from the Puget Sound group. On the left is a very tiny Heltec pager style node. I think it's 2 inches by 3 inches, and they've got a real small antenna that doesn't work terribly well on that, but there it is. On the right, that is it's a repeater, and that one's up on a ridge, basically. It's also using that same board. It's that Heltec in there. Again, 22 dBm, but they have a better antenna, and it's higher, so it can repeat kind of further. We'll see some pictures of how the network sort of works and looks like that in a minute. Yeah, go ahead. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the question was, when you send a message, are other nodes or other repeater nodes rebroadcasting that message so that it can go further out on the mesh network? The answer is yes. That's essentially how it works. Meshtastic works a little bit different than MeshCore in that Meshtastic uses a routing protocol they call managed flood, right? And it goes out and it has a limited number of hops it can make between devices before it no longer sends. And we'll get into some of the technical challenges with that further down. The limit is 7 on Meshtastic. So if you have, like in this room, I think we have probably 7 nodes between us. Our message wouldn't go much further than that. MeshCore has tried to get around that by the very first time you send a message, it uses that protocol to sort of establish a path, and then it has a preferred routing path after that. But I think importantly, the number of hops are capped at 64. So MeshCore, I'm getting ahead of myself here, it's set up better for like a planned infrastructure rollout where you have sort of high altitude or higher repeater nodes that can make a backbone for your mesh network. And then your messages can get through a little bit better rather than being eaten up by other nodes. So the hardware question, so there's the small stuff, and then these are some examples of solar powered nodes that would go on rooftops or towers or buildings that help out the mesh network. So it's sort of endless. There's pre-made nodes where you can just buy and turn on and flash and get going, or you can build it yourself. It's that DIY spirit. So there's a little bit of history about the SAC area mesh networks and the current status. So the Sac Valley mesh began in end of April 2024 using default presets. Longfast is just the default channel for Meshtastic in the US. And there's some budget link information there, 153 dB nominal budget. In May of 2025, there was an effort to migrate to a different default channel because there was a problem where I was just sort of saying the more nodes you have, the more congested things get. And there was a problem where it was just sort of cluttered. People weren't able to get messages through the network very well because there were just so many nodes trying to rebroadcast and just getting jammed up. So they moved to a couple different channels, tried a couple different things in May of 2025. About the same time or a little bit later in August, there was a change and we tried to link up with the Bay Area mesh network, which turned out to not be such a great idea because if we thought there were a bunch of nodes in Sacramento, there's a whole lot more in the Bay Area. And it made the network pretty much unusable at times. We could hear people down in the Bay Area. They couldn't necessarily hear us, or we couldn't hear people locally in Sacramento. And so there were a lot of challenges and a lot of changing of default channels to try to test things out. But ultimately, it kind of led to key nodes getting sort of scattered and not on a same sort of game plan. The beauty of it is it's decentralized. The downside of it is it's decentralized, right? And so it works, but not as well as it could. In late October of this year, there's a node or a repeater in Sugar Pine, and I keep mentioning Jeff. Jeff is the owner of Sugar Pine. It went live and it was zero hop to most of Sacramento, and I have a picture of some of that set up here in a bit, or at least a map. But most key nodes have moved to medium fast. Many users found that they could no longer connect on various channels due to low node density or a worse link budget. And so kind of through attrition, the SAC network continued to sort of hollow out. Late October, Bay Area starts the MeshCore project, and it's about 200 nodes and 270 Discord members by January of 2026. November of 2025, Sugar Pine and N5JEF base station go live on MeshCore. And he chose a preset that's close to the default, but not quite the default, and to better avoid the picket fence of smart meter interference. So that's one of the big users of 33 centimeter in the area is PG&E, SMUD, smart meters. There's a lot of picket fencing in there. So you want to be in between all that noise if you can. And then Jeff has continued to roll out more repeaters to current day. Some of the major takeaways, like I talked about, the SAC mesh, at least on Meshtastic, can be pretty cluttered on the default preset. I think Bill has complained that he's not able to really get messages out, but he can hear some messages sometimes. Keynodes are scattered across several other presets now, and then integration with the Bay Area makes mesh almost unusable. message hops get eaten up by the mesh and you're unable to communicate with others very easily. So sort of a key takeaway is that MeshCore, this fork, appears to perform a little bit better as far as routing goes, and it allows easier communication even with high node counts. And this has been seen in a few other major metropolitan areas, including Austin, Seattle, Vancouver, Los Angeles is now connecting to San Diego to a pretty large mesh network using MeshCore, and they're doing it with pretty good success. Here's a diagram or a map of Meshtastic in fall 2025 from that Sugar Pine repeater, and you can see the different colors are different default presets for Meshtastic, and so he's able to, you know, be heard by nodes at Mount Vaca, Mount Diablo, different parts of Sacramento, but it's just the throughput wasn't very good. This is a model that Jeff put together for MeshCore in its current status in the Sacramento area, mostly based on the Auburn repeater, and it shows pretty good reception in Sacramento and Auburn. And we're trying to do a planned phased build out to build that infrastructure to have a pretty robust and reliable network. This is a model updated for once we get a MeshCore node on the tower at the Carmichael Elks Lodge. And it just sort of boosts coverage for the Sacramento area. So I mentioned it a little bit, but I'll talk about some of the key differences between Meshtastic and MeshCore. These slides come from the Puget Sound repeater group. The main difference is sort of network philosophy between the two. Meshtastic is a more of ad hoc kind of philosophy, whereas MeshCore is more of an infrastructure-based philosophy. They have pros and cons, each of them. It just depends on what you're trying to do. The challenge of density is where Meshtastic really sort of struggles. You have multiple nodes will try to be helpful, and they use algorithms to attempt to avoid collisions, but in practice, it's less reliable in congested areas. And where it really seems to shine is off-grid uses, or I've seen a lot of success in like conferences or hamvention. A lot of people will take mesh nodes and they're able to have a working, reliable mesh network using Meshtastic, and that may be the best sort of use case for that. The Puget Sound group did a case study at Beacon Hill, and basically they're trying to have communication over a hill, Beacon Hill, essentially. With Meshtastic, they were having sporadic success, no route control, and 10% throughput. But when they switched to MeshCore, there was proactive routing, more consistent messaging, and 85% throughput. So this seems to be the way a lot of metro areas are going, this tiered backbone approach, where you have two major role types using MeshCore. You have repeaters for wide area repeaters, as well as neighborhood fill-in repeaters, and then you have clients or end user devices. MeshCore, the main feature is deterministic routing. The network figures out the route automatically, and then you can also manually specify a route, which you can't do on Meshtastic. And like I said, it's up to 64 hops, so I think that helps as well. Some other features, there's flexible messaging modes. You can do private one-to-one messaging. You can have private groups, or you can have public channels. There's also people trying to do 1990s style BBS or bulletin board service on Mesh, and I've even tried to do that a little bit. I haven't finished that, but it's a pretty interesting concept, and it seems to work. You can also get telemetry data via the network or from nodes, and with MeshCore, the remote server management or remote repeater management is quite a bit nicer, I will say, than Meshtastic. It's more intuitive. So this is just a comparison table of the two main sort of protocols or main projects in this mesh network. This was put together by the Austin Mesh and why they sort of are leaning towards MeshCore. Mainly it's the routing. It's the way the routing is done and the maximum hops. And it just seems to fit a little bit better for city scale, whereas the Meshtastic stuff is more ad hoc. It works in highly mobile and telemetry heavy situations as well. So each has its place. The picture on the left is my node on my roof, as well as my Fong antenna, plug for the Fong antenna on top. I really need a standoff for that, but it works pretty well. I can talk to Jeff up in Auburn pretty reliably. My messages go through. There's no repeaters in between him and I. It's just, it goes to his, I believe it's his Sugar Pine repeater, and then he gets it on his client node. And then this is a woman in Puget Sound, and she's installing a node on top of a garden shack, essentially. They have some information about DXing. With mesh, it isn't about power, it's about routing. Routing. And, you know, they're having success with reliable messaging between Vancouver and Seattle based on routing alone. It's not a question of boosting power. Yeah. I believe the MeshCore app is a little bit nicer as well, as far as giving you a lot of data you can play with. But the whole goal is communication. So both systems allow private messaging, private channels with encrypted keys between them, and you can share your encrypted key, and it's encrypted messaging, which is not an amateur radio thing necessarily, but with the unlicensed mode, encryption it's a feature. Sharing of those codes or links is pretty easy through QR codes. And like I said, there's all kinds of channel options you can have on both. For MeshCore, it's pretty nice as well. You can allow guests to log into your repeater as far as getting information from your repeater and then using the repeater manual routes, like discovering them through that way. So they don't have access to change information about your repeater configuration, but they can use your repeater's manual routes that are established to send their messages. There's a lot of different in-app tools, route tracing, antenna coverage, line of sight information, a receive log, and then device discovery as well. And then how to get started. So these are some of my last slides. It's pretty low barrier to entry. You can buy, like I said, buy pre-made nodes. They're available through Rockland. I'll put that link up here. ROKLAND is a pretty big distributor of a lot of these sort of Meshtastic, MeshCore endorsed hardware, essentially. LilyGo is another. You can get it on Amazon or AliExpress. But if you Google, endless options come up for what boards to buy, where to buy, and prices range from 15 or 20 bucks all the way up to the one with the keyboard, I think it's 70 bucks, and I had to put a battery in it and a GPS, and I bought a different antenna. But then it's just flashing firmware to whatever board you get, downloading the app, and building out your nodes, your repeaters. We're working on installing more repeaters and then ways to connect. There's a Bay Area mesh group, there's a Sac Valley mesh group, and then there's a West Coast mesh group, which is working on linking from San Diego to Los Angeles, and now we're working here in Sacramento. And there's also groups up in the Pacific Northwest. So, like I said, lots of thanks to Jeff and 5JEF for help with MeshCore and this presentation. Here's some bonus content, like I said. This is at the Carmichael Elks Lodge on the roof. That's the sad state of the antenna tower, where all the pieces of the antenna have blown off over the years. And so I have those available, but Yeah. There's some pictures from inside the radio room at the lodge. It's a Spectrum Communications SCR 77 FM repeater on 220, and then some pictures of the Drake TR7 setup. So we're going to get all that up and going. If you know of any hams that are elks or elks that want to be hams, let me know. Any questions about mesh stuff? We can talk about that. Yeah, lots of questions. Let's start over here.
What is a typical home mesh station? How is it configured? What kind of antenna? How do you connect to the antenna that's outside from inside your shack? All that kind of stuff. What's the practical setup that you'd have at home?
So I can tell you about mine. I don't know if it's the most practical, but I'll go off mine. So I'm using a node called a Station G2. It's a 1 watt unit. They are actively trying to update the configuration on it, or there's an update coming to that board. So they're out of stock right now. You can buy them secondhand. I have it power over Ethernet running from inside my house. So it takes that one needs 15 volts to run. There's a converter that converts the power, and it runs over Cat5 Ethernet up the side of my house to the box that it's in. It's in a weatherproof. We can go back to that picture. So it's real tiny. You can't really see that. So the Ethernet kind of goes under my eaves and then up to my mast, up to this weatherproof enclosure that I have. Inside the weatherproof enclosure is the node, and it's powered by that Ethernet. Like I said, it's the antenna I have on there. It's made by Alpha, ALFA. This one's they say it's a 5 dBi antenna. It's not. And so I will probably upgrade that antenna, but Rockland sells basically everything you need. Right now they're doing free shipping. This is not a plug for Rockland, but they also factor in some of the tariffs and the other costs where you might have to pay some surprise fees if you ordered straight from AliExpress or from some of the Chinese distributors directly. As far as connecting to that node, when I was on Meshtastic, I had it connected to my Wi-Fi network, and I could log in to the IP on my network using a computer. That way I could type my message or look at the different nodes, look at all that information. That's one way to do it. With MeshCore, I have a companion node, which is this one. And so I connect my smartphone to this, and this logs into the node on my roof, and I'm able to communicate to that repeater node on my roof and get all the configuration information in the app and change it that way.
Either Wi-Fi? Either one?
Yeah, either one. I'm using Bluetooth, but that's sort of the basic setup, is some sort of input device, your cell phone, your tablet, your computer, connected via Bluetooth or Wi-Fi to the node. And then that node can connect to other nodes, or in MeshCore's instance, it'll connect to my repeater node where I can configure it there. So as far as the pieces you need, it's the LoRa board, which is inside of this, or it's the Station G2 power. So you can do a solar power option or a solar charged battery option. I just decided to go hardwire with PoE, and then you need your antenna, and that's it. Does that sort of answer it?
I have it.
Yeah, Alan.
So I have a number of nodes, roof mounted node. I have brought this one. I'm wearing a seed. The problem I'm having is getting my messages out.
Yeah.
Just like you described.
Yep.
That's the same thing that Bill. So it sounds like there's a transition to MeshCore.
Yeah. So
My question is,
Yeah.
can my same devices, hardware transition to MeshCore? Because that sounds like what I need to do and what Meshtastic needs to do.
Yeah.
That's my question.
Yes. To answer your question, I don't know if it's 100% compatibility, but it's like 99% compatibility between hardware. So if your bot hardware works on Meshtastic, odds are it's going to work on MeshCore. And you just go to the MeshCore website and you flash the device and you're up and running. Yeah, it's very similar.
Let me see if anybody online has a question first. Anybody watching on Zoom have a question for Ben? No? Okay. Tom.
I brought some sample devices if people are interested in looking. I
Yeah.
built this system for Burning Man.
Oh, cool.
This sits on a 30-foot flagpole that I push up next to my RV.
Yeah.
And I built a drive-on holder for it. There's no extension wires. Oh, okay. And basically I just bring down the power and I link to this with my cell phone through Bluetooth to do all the management.
Yeah.
But this repeated messages for everyone at Burning Man.
Cool.
Well,
Using Meshtastic or MeshCore?
using Meshtastic. This was in 2024.
Yeah. Cool. And so it was, is that Ethernet power or it's,
No, it's just a pair of wires. I just sent
Okay.
5 volts up and I'm using Hellcore or Helltech
Yeah.
devices.
Yeah.
So this is a version 3 without a display. It's very cheap. It's like $16.
Yeah.
And I think the antenna costs more than everything else.
that's typically how it goes. I didn't bring any Helltech stuff, but I'm glad you did. And I put it in
Yeah,
the Discord
then-
if people wanted to bring them to sort of show and tell. We
Yeah,
can do that
and I have
also.
one, it's called a white paper.
Mhm.
And it's just a black and white screen. Doesn't work very well.
Yeah.
But it's also a version considered similar to version 3. And then I brought a couple of these actual version 3s and I just 3D printed all these boxes off of online pre-designed cases. I just printed them off and made them. So it was just the price of the Helltech board comes with the antenna and the 3D filament to make the case. And that was it.
Yep.
Oh, I did have to buy lithium batteries. So
Yeah. I think when I bought my Helltechs on Amazon, it was a 2-pack and I think I paid $40. And like you're saying, it came with an antenna. It may have come with the battery also at the time. This was a few years ago. So it's pretty easy to get started.
yeah, you buy from Helltech, you can buy half a dozen of them. They give you a discount. Oh, yeah, if you buy a half a dozen of them directly from Helltech, they give you a discount.
Oh, nice. There's a version 4 board now that does 1 watt as well. It seems to be another way people are trying to break through is bumping up to 1 watt. Yeah. Other questions? I know there's a question in the back. There's some over here.
Well, more of a comment. More of a comment, I guess, actually is, I was in IP networking for years and years and years. What Meshtastic and MeshCore, the experience you're describing is exactly the problem RIP and OSPF had. Well, RIP had, and OSPF was the solution for.
Hmm.
And border gateway protocols beyond that. So I guess I'm not very surprised that you're saturating your local area networks with updates.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just, if you're questioning whether or not to go to MeshCore, that's probably a no-brainer, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. Right. And part of the comment after that was the only people that know how to do that is if they're talking to other people or they hear about this sort of change or MeshCore as sort of a fork. And yeah, you're exactly right. So that's sort of the problem as well, is a lot of people buy these boards and then just turn them on and then leave them. Right. And so then it's sort of abandonware, and that also saturates the network. And yeah.
Okay. So with all of this talk, like when we're doing ham radio, we talk about
Mhm.
phone or CW or RTTY. So what protocols, what forms of communications do you use on this? Is it all texting? Is it voice? What?
It's all text. It's all text based. So it's really like a pager from back in the 90s or late 80s.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
Simplifies it.
Yeah. I think a good use case is, you know, if I lived in San Jose for a little bit and there was an earthquake when I lived there going to San Jose State. Part of the reason why I became a geologist was because of that earthquake. But at the same time, the cell network didn't work after that because everybody was trying to call each other. And so texting sort of worked. I think people hope that something like Meshtastic or MeshCore can sort of serve as an alternative in an emergency situation to sort of connect people with loved ones or, you know, for check-ins or nets or that sort of, right? Right, right.
There was mentioning of OSPF a moment ago, and one of the competing systems, the Arden network, is moving. They're dropping OSPF and going to Babel, so it's be a much more efficient. But the question I had, I guess, you know, when you talk about Meshtastic and MeshCore, Meshtastic sounds like an ad hoc, limited range, where MeshCore would be a long range. Are there gateways that take Meshtastic to MeshCore so that you could have a Meshtastic area that then connects to MeshCore for longer distance?
That's a good question. I don't know that that's being done at the moment. I know for the Sacramento area, and I don't know what the acronym stands for or the abbreviation stands for, but there was a lot of use of something called MQTT as like an internet backbone for the mesh network. And in some ways that's a little bit of cheating, right? Like the goal is to communicate over RF, but because the network was probably saturated or there were issues, internet sort of had to bridge that gap.
I was looking at this because I'm a minor member on the Arden network working team in the Sacramento area, but I also, we use a different, well, ours isn't so mesh on this other thing, but for instance, at the air show at Mather, we're using a D-Star, D-RATS type setup for all of our communications. I was looking at this as a possible, unfortunately, we need to be able to pass more than just messaging. We need to be able to pass pictures and that, but it's an interesting corollary that maybe might be able to use for some of our things. And
yeah,
just looking at that.
Yeah, I think there's definitely something there. Right now we're trying to build the infrastructure, and then once that's sort of built, you know, sky's the limit as far as ideas. It's cool. Okay. Yeah, the comment
as far as frequencies
Audio now unmuted.
Testing 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm sorry, we had a glitch and we lost audio. Hearing us out there in Zoom land?
Yeah, Carol, you're sounding good. N60KV.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, there was a glitch here. Things dropped out.
All right, let's begin moving back to our seats so we can get to cover the few other things, and then I have these behind my radio. What are you doing? Stacking them like 4 to 1? Ah, sure. Okay, sure. I have this.
The reason why I picked these two is because they have really low insertion loss.
Yeah,
Way more efficient.
that's very cool. Did it work well?
I used it this last week. This one.
Yeah.
South America.
Really?
Did a park.
Did you document
10
this for when we have our contest about DIY stuff?
Sure.
Okay. All right. All right, everybody, take your seats, please. Thank you, Ben. We appreciate it. Now our next thing is show and tell. Did everybody pick up their club ID cards? Oh, there's Marty's. I'll take his. I'll probably be seeing. Okay. Michelle KI6JT. No, that's not you. Tony. Did she make one for you? Oh, okay. Well, then you know exactly where they are. All right, let's take our seats. Let's thank Ben Parrish again for a great presentation. And this is the, foundation of the hobby, the Amateur Radio Relay League. That's how it started. And so that was its reason for being. So this still exists. You can send a radiogram to anybody in the United States for sure. Places. So I'll see if I can get somebody to speak on that. Before we do show and tell, I want to poll the group. Because we have an opportunity to buy the Ed Fong antennas at a discount, should the club buy some extra antennas for the giveaways that we do at the end of the meetings? The $45 one. Usually what we're giving away is anywhere from $50 to $70 at each meeting. So it's in the budget, right? So when you pay for extra tickets, it helps pay for the prizes. So I was thinking we should order like 6 to 10 of them to cover for, you know, remember we have different things to pick from. What do you guys think? Yes, yes. 5. Phil says 5. Carol said 6. Ken? Tom? How many what? One at a time. Because the coax is that's on demand coax buying. The handheld radios, the ICOMs, how many of those did you buy? Phil bought 10 a couple of years ago. And so we still have a handful of those left. And I need to order another Nano VNA. Those are $50. That's true. That's true. But we're not trying to save money. We want to enrich all of you and encourage you to come to the meetings. So what are we looking at? Okay, so 5-ish. All right. That'll last for, okay. All right. That's the thing. We're taking advantage of the discount. Right. All right. Let's do some show and tell before we go to the drawing. Hank, you have show and tell? No. He does or he doesn't have show and tell? He sort of has show and tell. Oh, yes. This is the QMX Plus transceiver. For those who haven't seen them, you put this one together? Yeah. Does it work? Yeah. Is there a 3D printed box? I'm surprised, Hank. It's a nice bill. Yeah. And it's heavy. Have you been on the air? Have you been on the air with it yet? Okay. Oh, this is what you did. You added the stand. Are those 3D printed? Oh. All right. So what Hank did is he added the feet. Am I showing that? Yeah. Very nice. Thank you, Hank. Good. Oh, okay. By going up and down there. All right, let me show this to the folks at home. So this is a power supply for the QMX. Is that working? Yeah. That's very good. Right, good. And a nice little external speaker. All right, thank you. That's a nice show and tell. Somebody else had something. Bob. We were here on Saturday finishing the kit build that Bob led. It was supposed to be 1 3-hour session, and we're into hour 9. Kishore's is still not working. We're having mixed success, but we're getting there. That's okay. Mixed success.
Yeah, I think it was back in November that I said, let's have a workshop and let's try to put 3 circuits together on a strip board. A strip board, you know, is a generic little board. It's not a printed circuit board that gets designed. They sell for like 66 cents. And so anyway, the 3 circuits were an LED flasher, a code practice oscillator, and a little transmitter. And so that's what we've been doing in that workshop. Starting, I think it was in November, and we went into December, and holidays came and moved into, you know, we've only had one meeting, I guess, in January. Anyway, so I started thinking back in, you know, months ago about what comes after this, something more, you know, sophisticated. So I was impressed by this little transceiver from the Force States QRP group. They have a national convention, and hams in 4 different states get together at their national convention, and they have this website, and they sell kits. This is a kit. This particular one is for 80 meters. I bought one for 20 meters. I put those together, and it's much better than a Pixie. And there are no toroids to wind. They're crafted into the printed circuit board. Anyway, this works a lot better than a Pixie. And so I thought, well, I would like to clone that sucker. Clone that sucker. What are you doing? Oh, okay. All right. So beats the hell out of me. I mean, I put one of these together in, an hour or two, but I don't know what the group would take. Anyway, so my plan was to clone this sucker, which I have done at this point. And I have it on two strip boards at this point. The one on the right, to people watching, is the transmitter, and it was putting out over a watt. And then the audio portion is on the bigger board here, and I want to redo the transmitter and get it on this big board, so everything's on one board. So I'm moving towards that. But it all works at this point. It transmits, like I said, about a watt, and it has a side tone, and it receives. I transmit to it with a Elecraft XG3, and this is just this week. All this came together and it's working. So I'm going to move forward. I did make a small improvement on here, or maybe a couple of improvements. Engineers are always improving things, and so now it doesn't put out a watt anymore. It's less than a watt. So anyway, so that's about all I have to say. This is going to be coming up. I'll offer another workshop to build the sucker once I've perfected it and got it all on one board. So that's it. It's a Cricket clone. And this is for 40 meters.
Spending several days with Bob building a kit that, okay, you have takers, I think. All right. You have any sense of what it's going to cost in parts? $10, $20? Probably 20. Okay, good. Before any other show and tell? Osatama, you showed us this, which you used at Burning Man, which I think is really cool, and that's really neat. You went to Burning Man with that and provided communication. Yeah. No. We were in what's the city just before Reno where you not Sparks. We were heading somewhere and we stopped overnight at Sparks just around Burning Man time, and they had huge signs saying, if you've been to Burning Man, you are not allowed into our RV park, because apparently it's really dirty and dusty out there. So Ken is doing a great job on the newsletter, but we need more articles. And so, please, Al submitted something, K6AI, on crossband repeat, which I thought was pretty interesting. I don't know if others have used that before. I've used it when I go to walk the dog. I sometimes will put my radio on crossband repeat and just take an HT and go out, and that works pretty well. But Ken needs articles and ideas and input, so please check with Ken about that. This is, as soon as we're done, this will be the last call to order a discounted Ed Fong antenna. That doesn't mean you may not win one in the future. We'll buy some just to put in the box with the coax and the nano VNAs. Just the roll-up antenna, the $45 roll-up antenna, which No, the box doesn't have to be 5 feet long. A lot of folks in Aries use that antenna. In fact, we did have a build of that antenna a couple of years ago, and I think Jay N6SAC is planning on maybe doing another antenna build at some point, but he hasn't decided what antenna to build. I think the ones built by Ed Fong are going to be a lot better. I mean, mine worked, but it was ugly. Okay. Any other show? Oh, Walter, show and tell this, please.
This is, if you know KJ6ER, he is Greg. He is kind of the progenitor of the POTA performance. And this is the POTA Challenger. And then there's also another one called the POTA Dominator. And and he's got a new one coming out. It's a Moxon design that's interesting. It's called the Marauder, but it's not out yet. Each one is kind of a little bit different, but this one is the mid one, and it introduces a little bit of DX. It's you would call it an elevated, off-center fed, halfway vertical antenna, and and it's highly efficient, 94% efficient radiating antenna, and it has a mid-range peak radiation angle. So it does pretty good with DX. The Dominator is better. It has a very low angle of peak radiation, so it can really go out. So kind of the Performer is more continental. This one kind of starts to introduce a little bit of DX, but it's good, continental. And then it's a 17-foot or 25-foot standard whip radial, or vertical that a lot of people have. That's it. It's the advantage of this one over the Performer. It's very low footprint. You just throw out that counterpoise and throw up your whip. You can have it up in minutes, and you're good to go. And I used it this last weekend for the first time, and I got all over South America, Germany. Talked to my friend in Australia that on 15 meters, Richard, he always gets me on POTA, and he's had no problems. So. Yes, you can. You could put this in your backyard too. And I built a lot of this with scrap parts. I mean, this is an angle iron piece from Home Depot. This is some wood I had and some PVC I had. He built, the original design. And if you go to his his QRZ page, KJ6ER, you can go get his designs for free and build it your own way. He uses a tripod. I don't like tripods, so I put it on like a cheap umbrella stand. Or I could spike it with a spike into the ground and guy it. So, but it's very, you can kind of design it your own way. So, very efficient though. Very, very good antenna. So.
Any other shows and tells? I don't know what the plural of show and tell is. And comments or questions. Think about articles for the newsletter. Think about maybe doing a Get on the Air event soon. Maybe we'll practice, do a Club POTA thing again or something, which is kind of fun. The weather's improving. All right, do we want to do the drawing? Remember, if you win, you get nothing tonight. Blame it on the traffic. But come see me and we'll make arrangements to get together. So your choices are going to be coax, nano VNA, spectrum analyzer, or the ICOM walkie-talkie handheld HT that we have. All right? Okay. Who wants to do the drawing? Have Miller do the drawing. Miller, it's good to see you.
One 156,998.
What are you going to pick out of the box that's not here? Banana
Okay.
V&A,
Write
okay.
Bill and Nano on that.
Bill and Nana. All right, thank you. Thanks, Miller. Any other comments for the good of the order? Also, we do need more ideas for club meeting events. So speakers that you're interested in, it could be anything, manufacturers, something like Ben did today, something like the satellite presentation that Bill did last year, something about an experience, Wilson's de-expedition to Rancho Cordova. So. Would you mind reaching out to him? Okay, that'd be great. Okay. And it looks like there's just a couple cookies left on your way out. Everybody, thank you also for the donations to the food closet. I have asked that a representative come and talk to the group to thank us. You guys have done an amazing job filling that basket each month, and it's appreciated. So, all right, have a good night, and we'll hear you guys on the air, and we'll see you guys all, guys and gals, next month. Oh, and don't forget the breakfasts. 2 breakfasts this month, the 21st and the 28th. Yeah, all right. Thanks, folks online. Bye, Carl, Rick.
Bye, everybody.
Oh, field day.